Did Danny have a revelation? Why out of all the superstars in the world he chose to get a tattoo of Salma Hayek? The reason behind it will leave you speechless, but the way she reacted to it, it's also questionable. For most people, this would have been a clear red flag to stay away from that man, but to Salma, this was just the perfect opportunity to invite Danny into her home. Although she would soon question her actions when realizing that Danny didn't used to be just some random criminal. He was convicted for something that earned him a spot in America's most dangerous prison. When inmates heard the name Danny Trejo, they knew they had to behave and respect him, or else things could go very wrong for them. San Quentin State Prison, located in California, was no joke. Inmates had to always stay alert, or else they could lose their lives. People who came here were amongst the most vile in the world, and for those who had the worst sentences, they were executed either by hanging or in the gas chamber. But Danny wasn't always that tough guy people met in prison. He used to be a loving child who enjoyed playing with girls. So how did he go from playing with dolls to being convicted in one of the most dangerous prisons in the country? As it turns out, our family can play a huge factor in what we grow up to be. And unfortunately, everything changed for Danny when his Uncle Rudy saw him wearing a dress. This incident earned Danny a punishment. While his family was having a barbecue, Danny was locked inside his dad's car. Danny was only 6 years old, and even though his aunts wanted to help, they couldn't as they were too scared to deal with Danny's father. However, just like a guardian angel, Uncle Gilbert pulled Danny out. He was the only one who didn't care about what Danny's dad would do or say. To Danny, this was an eye-opening experience. A man who was not afraid to stand up for others. What a hero, he thought. From that moment, Uncle Gilbert started to become more present in Danny's life, offering something that he wasn't getting from anybody else: attention. Whenever Danny wanted to talk to his parents, they said that they were too busy. But do you know who was never too busy for Danny? That's right, Uncle Gilbert. Now, was this all out of his own kindness? At the time, all Danny saw was that all the men in his family worked in the construction industry, but they would always complain about their work and showed signs of constant anger. This wasn't what Danny wanted for himself. So when he saw that Uncle Gilbert never complained about his job and didn't look angry all the time, he was immediately drawn to find out what he was doing for a living. Sadly, Uncle Gilbert was up to no good, and he had no trouble teaching Danny his craft as a drug dealer. Danny started dealing at the tender age of 7. Only a year after, he committed his first crime of compassion when he and his uncle set free a bunch of cows. It was these sorts of acts that convinced Danny that his uncle was doing heroic actions rather than criminal ones. So he stood to his side, and by 12, Danny was using heroin. He overdosed getting his first heroin fix, and then also came the life of committing robberies as an official member of a gang. Gilbert died young, but Danny was already shaped by him, so he continued following the exact same path his uncle left behind.
My uncle, my hero, my mentor, he died of an overdose of drugs, and he had, I think, $13,000 in his pocket and drugs, and he had died of an overdose. So he had everything. And the only way you can beat heroin is not use it, is not get near it.
This earned Danny some time in various juvenile offenders camps, and eventually, he ended up in San Quentin Prison, also known as the Arena. All prisons tend to have a hostile environment, but this place had a reputation for being extra hard on inmates. Your best shot at surviving was showing them that you could fight and stand up for yourself. So was the kid who played with dolls in Alpha? You bet Danny was. He learned from the best. Uncle Gilbert taught him everything he needed to know when serving time in prison. As a criminal, you don't want to get caught. But this was just what Danny needed to save his life. With a clear mind and no way to escape using drugs, Danny was finally met with something that would change everything: boxing. To him, it wasn't just a sport to keep himself in shape. It was a lifestyle he adopted to stay sane. Every day, Danny would wake up inside a cold cell surrounded by monsters, but he didn't allow that to get to him. All his mind could focus on was on training hard, and the effort he put into it paid off. He became a champion in San Quentin's lightweight and welterweight divisions. Naturally, word got around, and now some inmates were even requesting protection from Danny and his ring. But as much as you want your environment not to affect you, sometimes it's impossible. And Danny realized this during a dominoes game that went horribly wrong with someone almost getting killed. Where was that loving child he once was? The violence had changed him, but perhaps it wasn't too late to change. After 3 long years in prison, Danny was set free and back into society again. But with nowhere to go, he returned to his parents' house and asked his mom if he could stay there. But his mom didn't say anything. Instead, she turned to see Danny's dad and asked if they could allow him in. Fortunately, Danny's dad said yes. He came inside and went straight to his bedroom. At that moment, he felt something deep growing inside him. It wasn't anger or sadness, it was disappointment. A 26-year-old convict, armed robber, who's sitting in the same bed as when he was 13. The realization of what he went through all to end at his parents' house was rough. Even though Danny's dad let him in, he knew he wasn't happy with his presence. His dad hated the criminal life he chose and the tattoos that came with it. Then suddenly he thought he needed to stand in front of his dad and confront him for not looking at him or even saying hello. But before Danny did something he was inevitably going to regret, his mother came out and offered him some cookies and milk. Right after that, Danny started reflecting on his life actions and wondered what he could do to turn his fate around. So the first thing that came to his mind was to help an old lady who lived in their neighborhood.
Am I gonna be a nice guy? You know what I mean? And I'm looking around, and Monday was the trash day. And I seen this old lady pulling out her trash. And because this is before they had the big cans that they got, the big rolling, you used to put everything in a tina and pull it out. And that's what I do. I walked over to her to help her. Never forget her words. No me robas, Danny. Cállate, vieja. And I grabbed her can and I pulled it out. And then I went to the backyard to get her other can. She never took her eyes off me. She's like, because she knew I was going to run to the garage and get a lawnmower, brought her can out again. Yeah.
But when Danny received a coat as a thank you present from one of the old people in the neighborhood he had helped, Danny felt an immense sensation of satisfaction. It was more than the thing itself. It was the gesture. This made Danny think that perhaps being good could bring positive things into his life. Over time, Danny understood that all the good that had happened to him was because he was helping somebody. But there was still the big question of, how do I make a living? With a criminal record and only a high school diploma, he knew that his options were limited. But with a friend, they decided to open a gardening business. Soon people started hiring them, and through a lot of hard work, the tiny business flourished into something bigger. They got 2 trucks, and now 4 guys were working for them. At this point, they were making good money, but Danny had a change of heart. He thought that his experience with drugs could be of help to assist addicts in their recovery, and so he became a drug counselor. In the 1980s, Danny collaborated with Western Pacific MedCorps, contributing to the establishment and management of sober living facilities within the San Fernando Valley. During his tenure, he encountered a young tattooed man during a meeting at one of these houses. This charming guy revealed to Danny that he worked as a film extra, earning $50 per day merely to stand on set. Piqued by the notion of effortless income and the potential publicity for his work with Western Pacific MedCorps, Danny asked the guy what he needed to do to become an extra. The young man looked at Danny in the eyes and asked him if he could act like a convict. Danny immediately began laughing and said that he'd give it a shot. Then one night, Danny got a call from a patient who was struggling with cocaine addiction and needed his assistance. So Danny went to the set of Runaway Train, a 1985 film. And while he was there, the most unexpected thing happened. Danny received an offer to work as an extra in the film's prison scenes. Edward Bunker, a former convict and published crime author who was writing the screenplay for the movie, recognized Danny from their time spent together at San Quentin. Bunker was impressed by Danny's boxing skills, and that played a significant factor in securing Danny the position of Eric Roberts' personal trainer and boxing consultant. Danny was paid between $320 and $350 per day for his work. When he received his first paycheck, Danny was so surprised he thought there might have been a mistake. Bunker also managed to convince director Andrei Konchalovsky to offer Danny a small acting role, believing that Danny's personal experiences with incarceration would add authenticity to the prison drama. After making his acting debut, Danny was unaware of being typecast as a prisoner in similar roles for years to come, stating, "I didn't know I was being stereotyped. I just knew I was working," he said. Then came El Mariachi 2, a movie by Robert Rodriguez starring Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. Robert needed someone who would look really intimidating without saying a word because this character wasn't supposed to have any dialogue. So when Robert saw Danny, he knew he was perfect for the role. When Salma heard that someone who had been in prison was now an actor on the set, she felt a bit afraid. And it probably didn't help much the way Danny introduced himself.
When I saw him for the first time, he saw me and he ran towards me and ripped his shirt off. And he said, "I knew you before I knew you. I dreamt you before I knew you."
Does that mean Danny had a vision of Salma while in prison? It's possible because when Salma saw the tattoo, she was surprised at the resemblance, immediately identifying the woman tattooed on Danny's chest as her. Danny was so into Salma that he told her he had stopped his criminal life, but would rob a bank for her. For some people, hearing and seeing all of this might have been too much, but Salma probably saw the good person Danny had been aspiring to become. In front of her was a crazy man who found himself on the wrong path and made some bad choices, but was also able to do one of the hardest things not all humans accomplish, which is to turn their life around.
If you did something wrong Don't let anybody take your mistake and use it against you. Even if it's a mistake, it belongs to you. It's yours. Own it. Yes, I did it. Throw it back in their face. And don't let them take your mistake. Your mistake, it's a valuable tool for growth and for life. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's better than to do nothing and learn nothing and not evolve. Your mistake is your greatest opportunity. And if somebody's making fun of you because you made a mistake, don't go down because of it. If you say, so what, to their face, if you say, yes, so what, they are powerless. They are powerless. Yes, I messed up. Tomorrow it will be another day. Next year will be another year. It is my mistake, not yours. You have your own.
After the filming for the movie was done, Danny didn't think for a second that he would get another chance to see Salma. However, she's a woman of surprises and a big heart.
Day before Thanksgiving, she calls me, and this is like almost 2 months later. She called with the movies over, called me and said, Danny, would you like to come to a Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, that's so nice.
I said, what? And she says, would you? Yeah. And so I went over to, she had a family Thanksgiving dinner and she invited me. She didn't know, I went to the bathroom, almost started crying. I couldn't believe that, first of all, she's go to hell gorgeous. Secondly, it's like she's so wonderful. She's so nice.
Very nice. She's so nice.
Unbelievable. Unbelievably nice, man.
The criminal past of Danny is something that will always accompany him. He learned from those mistakes and turned into the person we know today. Danny, once primarily known for his portrayal of villains in movies, experienced a remarkable transformation in public perception when he heroically saved a special needs child after a car crash. This life-changing event not only earned him widespread admiration, but also paved the way for him to be recognized as a superhero in the eyes of his fans. The incident unfolded on a seemingly calm street where a terrible car accident occurred involving a SUV going into the intersection which got T-boned by the other car. Amidst the chaos and panic, Danny's instincts kicked in, and he quickly assessed the situation. He noticed a special needs child trapped inside one of the cars, with no one else stepping forward to help. Without hesitation, Danny sprang into action, but he knew exactly how to deal with the kid, as they don't tend to like other people touching them. News of Danny's heroic act spread rapidly, and it didn't take long for the story to reach the media. The public was captivated by his incredible act of kindness and courage, and they began to see him in a whole new light. The image of Danny as a villain in movies started to fade, and in its place emerged the image of a real-life superhero. As a result of this life-altering event, Danny's fame kept growing. People began to notice all the good he had to offer and the valuable lessons he could bring to those who felt hopeless. Perhaps everything could have turned out to be different, less stressful, sad, or violent, but they didn't. Things are the way they are, and you have to own your mistakes no matter if you were influenced or not. The lesson here is that it is never too late to change. Be better, be kinder, and leave a positive mark on the world. Danny's life serves as a powerful inspiration, urging us to look beyond our own struggles and to focus on the ways in which we can uplift and empower those around us. By embracing the same values that have transformed Danny from a villain to a real-life superhero, which is why I think we can all agree that Danny is a living example of redemption.